our greatest shame as a nation? No, she is not. It's what she represents. The face that this puts on the American people. The everlasting shame that we just allowed an international terrorist to go free. We have literally jeopardized the lives of likely hundreds of thousands of people and potentially hundreds of millions. That depends on how high up in the Russian hierarchy he actually has some pull in. They're using him as a propaganda. Man, how many of y'all did not see that coming? Meanwhile, I read up about the guy. I like him. I really fucking like him. I really like the guy they just set free. I don't believe he's a terrorist. I don't believe that he's an actual terrorist at all. I believe he is exactly what he says that he is. He maintained his innocence for a reason. The United States, as we well know, decided to use torture techniques, which, yeah, if you do that stuff to people, they'll tell you their own mom did it if you want them to. We also note the courts were biased and that none of those who were arrested, whether the charges were bogus or not, none of them were allowed. Any of the laws were supposed to give them according to international law or according to United States law. It's as if they didn't exist, but we had them incarcerated, didn't we? Many of them are still incarcerated with no actual evidence of wrongdoing. Many of them are people who politically do not agree with the United States, and there are plenty of people in the United States who do not politically agree with the United States. If that is a valid reason for imprisoning someone, then we don't live in the United States, do we? We live in Nazi Germany. It's just unfortunate that the Nazi flag is, well, it looks an awful lot like the Stars and Stripes, don't it? So we're ignoring actual victims. We are letting go people who we are claiming are terrorists. If this guy is really that bad, and I can tell you after being put through the ringer and still going through the ringer at the hands of the American public over lies and slander, you know, I have to be in full support of sending her, Miss Griner, back to Russia. Send her back. Send her back. Being black is not a valid excuse for letting someone like that go. Okay? That's as simple as it is. If this guy is as bad as they say that he is, trading him for her, what reason are we trading her? Why does she matter to us? You force poor people to break the law to try to defend themselves every single day. This lady knowingly and willingly got onto an airplane with an illegal substance, knowing that even transporting it on an airplane in the United States is a felony. It's a felony. It is a felony here in the United States, let alone on an international flight. I hope the moment she gets back, they slap her in handcuffs and put her in jail where she fucking belongs. I hope that she is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But what are we likely to see? We are likely to see sexism to appease sexist groups. We are likely to see racism to appease racist groups. We literally traded a man who was plotting to murder Americans. We literally traded him for somebody who intentionally broke the law, for somebody who thought that she was above the law. What am I against these politicians for? Because they think they're above the law. Why am I against law enforcement? Because they think they're above the law. Why am I against soldiers? Because they follow the orders of people who think that they are above the law. When the law changes based on your skin color, or the law changes based on your gender, it should not be the law. That is not equality. Someone being white is not a valid reason to ignore them when they are victimized. Just because somebody is white doesn't mean that it is their fault that bad things happen to you. Just because somebody is white doesn't mean that they don't know what it is like to be victimized. When you are trained that every bad thing that happens to you is because somebody's victimizing you for the color of your skin, you're missing out on the whole fucking world around you. There are a lot of people right now who are being victimized for the same reason that you were victimized. Because you're easy to victimize. They caught you alone, or you're somebody who is a part of a group that they're able to make you out to be a horrible person for being a part of. You get to see how these famous people are who you care about. There's a bunch of posts on Facebook about that Griner lady, and they're glad she's free, and it's horrible. Send her back to Russia. She did break the law. Send her back. Send her back. I broke the law absolutely out of necessity. Why did she break the law? Was that illegal THC pen that she went across jurisdictional lines with? Transporting it across state lines is illegal either way, whether you transport it in or transport it out. It's still illegal. Taking it onto a flight, that's also illegal. And of course, taking it to another country is also highly illegal. Now, we just put a lot of people's lives at risk to appease a bunch of women and a bunch of black folks. I want you to stop for a second and realize what I just said. Why did we appease them? Specifically because they are black and because they are women. The law doesn't exist. It does not exist. It is a figment of your imagination, just like democracy, just like communism, and just like socialism. And that's almost true were it not for the fact that really all three of those do mean the same thing. The community should work together for the community. Society should work together for society. And people power is important. Of the people, by the people, and for the people, correct? We don't have true democracy anywhere in the world. We don't have true socialism anywhere in the world. What we've got is the illusion thereof. Democracy is mob law. It means what the majority of the people want, you're going to give them. Socialism and communism mean the same thing as well. That's what you're selling to the masses. You are selling to them that it is for the people that you do these things. It is for the people that you do these things. For the people. For the will of the people. But then, really, is it the will of the people? Or are you using propaganda to try to tell the people what to think and what to feel and what they should care about and who they should care about? When they should ignore the law and when they shouldn't. I keep getting it in my face, thrown in my face. These comparisons between black people and white people, men and women. And you guys ignore the comparisons that are far worse. Don't you? You ignore the rapes of men. And of course, you want to ignore crimes of brutality against whites. Of course, that's also dependent upon popularity. I, as a white person, that is how you view me. You want to pretend like I always have the option of going to the KKK and they'll help me. No, to them, I'm a Jew. I'm not a white person to the KKK. I'm not a white person to the Aryan Brotherhood. To them, I am a Jew. I get told how I need to go to the back of the bus because men make more money than women on average. First of all, I'm not one of those men. And second of all, men make more money than women on average because they work more hours on average by a lot. Meanwhile, what has America become? It has become a system whereby we have to stop everything that we're doing to listen to minority groups that we have already gone out of our way to give all of our time, all of our attention for years. Even at the detriment, risk, and safety of our own kin, of our own children, of our own mothers and fathers and sons and daughters. But we didn't make equal laws, did we? The only laws that reflect our equality as a nation can be found in the numbers for the homeless. How many of those black people who were murdered by police in 2019, how many of those black people were homeless? How many of those black people incarcerated in 2019 were homeless? Most of them. You know who the majority of the people in the jails right now are? Political prisoners. They even let child molesters, rapists, and murderers out of jails because of COVID. But then you look at me. I never stopped trying to turn in my predators. Ever. And although my evidence is enough to get an international tribunal against the United States, you won't look. The United States government is now making trades with terrorists for racist and sexist organizations to appease a racist and sexist agenda. We have now established a legal precedence whereby we will not only support black people who break the law in the United States, we will support them committing felonies internationally. And that includes putting the rest of the world and our own lives at risk by making deals with terrorists and freeing people who the United States government, who just traded him for somebody who literally is a nobody. All right? She's a nobody. She only matters because she is a famous black woman. She shows the epitome of what Americans care about, though, what they're told to care about. We've had this racist crap and this COVID crap thrown in our faces for how many years running? Somehow, magically, the news media cares more about black female famous basketball players. What's this lady famous for? I didn't know who the fuck she was. I don't care about sports, but I'm a guy, and there's a lot of guys who want to come up and talk to me about sports. There's a lot of women who come up to me, and they want to volunteer information about female sports stars because they want to tell me how unequal it is for female sports stars and how much they're paid compared to men. And I didn't have any clue who this lady was. She and I have the same birthday, by the way. I was born October 18th, 1980. She was born October 18th, 1990. She's only 10 years younger than me. And you guys want to pull this I'm an adult stuff in my face, don't you? Well, how old was Brittney Griner? How old? Seems to me she's an adult. It also seems to me that under the Reagan administration, y'all remember Nancy and her war on drugs, which continues to this day, there would have been a mandatory minimum of what, 20 years? It's not just a controlled substance that she had. It was the controlled substance and the implement. And of course, even here in the United States, you go to places like Nebraska, they can charge you with a felony for having one of them little vape pens with THC in it. Why? Because it's refined. They look at it the same way as if you were to take a cocaine plant or a coca plant and refine it into pure Colombian cocaine. Here in the United States, I mean, transporting it across state lines, that right there is a mandatory 20-year sentence. Mandatory 20 years. Do I have any room to complain about not being locked up over a mandatory 20? Well, I should have gotten a mandatory 20 years for threatening the life of Donald Trump, but they dropped it and let it go. Meanwhile, I did that with an intent and a purpose. Either you're going to listen to me and look at my evidence, or you are going to lock me up so that people will stop threatening my friends and family every time somebody fucking dies, every time somebody disappears, every time somebody throws a fucking tantrum, every time somebody gets lost for 2 days because they got fucked up on drugs. Every time Alicia Bollinger goes on another bender. Or every time that Ted Bollinger goes on a fucking wild goose chase, getting chased by the police through multiple states with Alicia Bollinger in the passenger seat. Fucking 18 grams of methamphetamines. And you guys treat me like I'm the predator. That Griner lady, it's not her that's so incredibly shameful about this situation. It's what it represents for us as a nation. It represents that we have traded what could have been something great for complete and total lunacy. We have shown that democracy does work, that communism does work, that socialism does work. See, there's a philosophical argument of an informed populace can make the right decisions. And that's where propaganda comes in. There are people who will argue that communism is not true communism because propaganda gets in the way. That's people's wants, needs, and desires. And of course, the manipulation that it takes to achieve those things. There's a lady named Becca who used to work at Starbucks, and her way to achieve what she wanted was she was going to marry into somebody who was rich. She achieved that goal. That is what she wanted, and she was able to get it. She made herself as physically appealing as she could. She knew that being a blonde here in America is something that is extremely important. If you want people to give you extra attention, you have to smile a lot even though you don't want to. You got to play a little bit ditzy and dumb even though you're not. But now we've got the media and we've got TV doing this really fucked up thing where we're supposed to bow down and give every part of our lives to people who are different, while being told that we need to go to the back of the bus because our differences aren't to be tolerated. It's not tolerable to be a white person anymore. It's not tolerable to be a male anymore. You don't have any power as a male. It doesn't matter how much evidence you have. What matters is that how far are you going to get with that evidence? With people holding bias, and you only have to tell one of 3 lies to destroy a man's life. We've taught women that it's okay for them to hit a man. They get to hit him once for free. We teach boys they're never allowed to hit a woman. It's never okay to hit a woman. But then when we see that boy on the playground hit that little girl, or vice versa, I've seen it both ways. You tell your little girl, and we're going to make it a little girl in this story, because if it's a little boy in the story, you'll look the other way. Just like when you post up these memes about teach your boys, teach your boys, teach your boys. Teach your girls the same thing. Instead of teach your boys not to hit women, how about teach your children not to hit anybody? Teach them that it's not okay. Teach your girls it is not okay to hit a boy. It's not okay to hit him first. You don't get a free shot. It is not okay for you to do that. It's not okay to go down to Pearl Street in Boulder, Colorado as a college football player and believe that just because you're black, that it's okay to beat on a homeless person and claim it's because he called you the N-word. By the way, that did happen. There were multiple situations where we had issues down on Pearl Street with CU basketball players, CU football players. Do you think we wanted those problems? Whose word do you think they're going to take? You guys who want to pretend that Boulder is this super racist place, no, they're not. Even the police go out of their way to make sure that they cater to somebody who could possibly be a football player or a basketball player at CU or an alumni. They want to do everything that they can to paint Boulder as a very liberal place, and that is why they had to give up Officer Smiley. They had to allow that racist narrative to be sold. Because if people knew how Boulder and the police really are, well, you still wouldn't care, because they do that to the homeless every day and you don't give two shits, even if it's on camera. You didn't care about Michelle Rodriguez when she was assaulted. It wasn't until she got into housing that Darren O'Connor gave a fuck. By the way, there are also other victims. But who are the ones that mattered? The minorities and the women. The minorities and the women. Is that entirely true? No. The minority woman, Michelle Rodriguez, was homeless when she was assaulted by Waylon Lolotai. She actually was homeless. However, she wasn't homeless when somebody actually started to give a shit other than me. Brittney Griner is also a lesbian. She is a part of the LGBT community. So she means a lot to a lot of communities. A lot of communities that I have fought hard for. A lot of communities that blame me because I'm not gay. It's okay to blame me for everything wrong that's ever happened to a homosexual. Never mind the fact that I have Tourette syndrome and I get beaten up as if I'm a drug addict or as if I am a homosexual winking at a man. I get victimized by anti-Semites because I look too Jewish. But that's not what this is about, is it? I grew up in the system getting my ass beat because I was white. And I got my ass beat a lot. Telling me that I don't know what it's like to be black, you're absolutely right. But I also absolutely know what it's like to get my ass beat for the color of my skin. And good luck finding a minority who's been beaten up that many times for the color of their skin. Now we see people who are exceptions to the rule, don't we? Like Johnny Depp. For the most part, we want to say that the man is always wrong and the woman is always right. Look at the case of Bill Cosby. With Johnny Depp, though, this is a heartthrob. This is someone that women in America really, really like. Matter of fact, there's women all across the world who really, really, really super like him. So, yeah, you get to see how the public opinion there is what matters and what group it's coming from. Well, we're continually bombarded with the idea that nobody cares about black people and nobody cares about women. There are those of us who are fighting for black folks and for women because we recognize that when the rights are violated against them, they're also violated against us. And it gives people a legal precedence to violate our rights because when they write them into law, they don't write them with a color. Now we're trying to put more laws into place that are specifically about color that have obviously only fanned racism. White men are sick of going to work every day and supporting a whole bunch of people that blame them for everything, no matter how hard they fight for those people. No matter how hard I fight for the rights of black people, no matter how hard I fight for the rights of women, the thing is, I'm fighting for human rights in all of those cases. You may have disappeared, and I saw you on an MMIW post, missing and murdered indigenous women. But do I share it because you're an indigenous woman? No, I show it because you're missing. You're a human being. That Brittney Griner lady, she's a human being, and in that respect, she does matter. But her skin color should not make a difference in this situation. Her gender should not make a difference in this situation. Her sexual whatever should not be a factor in this situation, because she was not targeted because she was a woman. She was not targeted because she was black. She was targeted because she broke the motherfucking law. She broke our laws and theirs, and many international laws. But we're told as white people that we owe all these different people, because we were born white, we owe these people for things that we don't have and do not benefit from. You want to pretend we all have these benefits? No, we're not all upper middle class white people. There are benefits. That is absolutely certain, but there's also benefits to the others, like you get to play on bias. I fought hard to change people's opinions about black people. I brought my experiences from growing up in the system, getting my ass beat for being the wrong fucking color, and I took that to Nebraska, where they blame everything on blacks, and there's no black people there to fucking blame it on. None of their problems in Nebraska are the fault of black people. Individually, there are black people who live there, especially on the east end of the state, that if those individuals did you wrong, those individuals did you wrong, but it's not their skin color that wronged you. Chapel, Nebraska, we got farmers who hire Mexicans to do all the harvesting, and the rest of the year they collect off of government funding, your tax dollars. And these farmers take these government subsidies and they go and get vacation homes. Arizona is a very popular place for Nebraskans to get vacation homes. So they hire these Mexicans because none of the white people there want to do those jobs. And sometimes you get the racist farmers, they don't want to hire a Mexican. They'll only hire people from South Africa. So we get South Africans, literally from South Africa, coming to harvest in Chapel, Nebraska, because people don't want to hire the Mexicans because they're racist. And they take their government subsidy money. These farmers go down to the local bar. They spend $50 a night at the local bar. They bitch about how blacks and Mexicans are the reason they ain't got no money. They're spending over double what I get in a month for disability. $1,500 a month or more on booze, plus whatever else they're buying down there. So $1,500 a month on booze. And of course, that's a real socialite there. That's those rich fucking farmers. They like throwing their money around. They sure do. They like going down to the bar and buying rounds for other people and being real friendly while they're real drunk. And they complain about blacks and Mexicans are the reason they never have any money. Like, you bought 2 houses. You got a big house in Chapel, Nebraska. You got one in Arizona, and then you got a country farmhouse out there that you rent to people who are supposedly seasonal workers, but you don't pay them anything. The place is run down. They're basically living like squatters, and it's gross. It's gross. So I go there, and there's a lot of people that are like, well, if you got beaten up by them minorities in the system, you ought to understand where we're coming from. I'm like, no, I don't understand where you're coming from. I do understand where they came from. When I was at Child Study and Treatment Center in Washington State, there was a guy there named Tim, and he was half black and half Native American, and he used to beat me up. He liked beating me up. He liked to beat me up with groups of people. And I remember that they would beat me up, and then they would claim that I called them the N-word. Now, this is like I was telling you about them black folks in Boulder, Colorado. That was their excuse for beating somebody up. They were called the N-word by somebody that I knew isn't racist. And also, here's the real kicker. I was there for the situation. I heard every word. I got to see that guy get shoved over and over again and getting yelled at. Call me the N-word. I dare you. I dare you. I know you want to. I know you want to. Call me the N-word, motherfucker. Call me the N-word, cracker. Like, fuck, man. Why you got to go up to a random homeless person and do that shit? Well, it wasn't just a random homeless person. They knew who to target. You target a woman and people are going to fucking do something. Holy shit, there's a black man putting his hands on a white woman. We better do something. Well, not in the Dalles and not in the Hood River, but Boulder, Colorado, yeah. People are definitely going to care. But you pick a white homeless man, nobody's going to care about them. You just say that he called you the N-word, or you say he's obviously mentally ill like the rest of them, or he's obviously a junkie like the rest of them. So we got black kids out there, and they trying to lie about a situation. They went out there specifically to target somebody and take their shit out on somebody for some good, clean fun, they thought. But now here they are. They're trying to appeal to the liberal mindset being sold. And no, ain't no real liberals. Just like ain't no real Democrats, no real Republicans, no real socialists, no real communists. We got good notions and good ideas. And the worst part is that it all comes down to what you call it. It's always mob law. It's always been mob law. If you're in charge of 30 million Vikings in your area, and you're a pagan just like your father and just like his father, but now most of the people are Christian, well, they're going to over-fucking throw you. You better convert. You convert to Christianity because that's what the people believe, the majority of the people. Every ruler has to be afraid of people power. Majority rules. Historically, though, it only takes 2 to 3%, between 1 and 3% of a population to stage an effective coup. Whereas democracy, socialism, these are all supposed to benefit the many. It's supposed to benefit the majority. The idea is that will benefit all of us. But what if the majority are idiots? We got a lot of woke white folk right now. mostly upper middle class white girls who got to have a puppy dog for a cause to feel all bleeding hard about. And then there's the boys who pretend to be like that because, of course, they want to get with that girl. They pretend they care about that cause too. And we all know those folks. The ones who give the rest of us a bad name. The ones of us who are actually fighting. Because those folks, those are the ones who see what's popular. They'll jump on the bandwagon once it's popular. Growing up in the 80s, being made fun of for being a nerd. And then now it's popular. We got people that go out of their way to paint an image, and don't we all? You put on your nice button-up shirt, and you go out there and you play your blue-collar image. You put on your pleated skirt and your Spankies, and you put on your cheerleader image. You throw on that football helmet, and, well, you could pretend that you're a football player. You're out there playing, but you got ambitions, right? My ambitions was to be Jaleel White. If you don't know who he is, well, look him up. He's a part of your history, too. We've given up the United States to insanity. I am all for a homosexual having the same rights as a heterosexual. I am not okay with homosexuals telling heterosexual victims that they're not allowed to speak up because they're heterosexual. I'm not down with the LGBT community telling someone that they are a heterosexual when you don't know. You want to pretend like I'm a heterosexual. I'm not now, nor have I ever been a heterosexual. I was disgusted and grossed out by sex before I went through puberty. I had already had enough actual experiences with people who couldn't take no for an answer. I'd grown up with enough of those girls that you guys make fun of. You tell her there's something wrong with her. You talk to your friends about what's wrong with her because she cut on herself. You can see those scars. She's also the one you're most likely to victimize. When you see the pretty girl, and then you see the pretty girl with scars, you know the one with scars, you can victimize her, and you can say, oh, she's mentally ill. She's mentally ill. Look at her, dude. She fucking cuts on herself. Obviously, she's got fucking mental problems. Obviously, I can't be the bad guy here just because she's a fucking mental case. You see how that works? And it works the other way, too. Here's the thing, is that yes, you're special. You're special because you're different. But that's why we are all special. And then you guys, of course, you see where this is going, don't you? You don't deserve special rights, you deserve equality. There's a big difference there. Just because you're black doesn't make it okay to kill you. Just because you're homeless doesn't make it okay to kill you. Many of us out on the streets got friends who are black. Many of our friends are black homeless people who are going through a lot more than you will ever possibly imagine. Because see, while a black person in a house may have it rough, they don't have it as rough as a homeless white person. An actual homeless white person. And then there's the fact that a black man out here on the streets, he does have it worse than a white person out on the streets. When a black man on the street speaks, you need to listen. But also, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because he's been taught that everything wrong that goes on in his life is because people are racist. When really it's because people are opportunistic. There's a lot of people that didn't want to help me, but that the chance to spend that money on drugs, you know, they couldn't come forward and tell the truth, and couldn't come forward and tell the truth. They couldn't do this and couldn't do that because they didn't have the money. Well, I busted my ass to try to make sure that they had the money to do those things. I'm like, this is dumb. You say, oh, Sean, you don't have to pay me. You don't have to pay me to tell the truth. I'm like, but here's the thing, is that you keep making excuses for why you haven't come forward yet, and all of your excuses are things that cost money. If you can't call me because your phone is off, because you couldn't pay the bill, you know what, that's $30. I can afford that. In the grand scheme of things, it'll save me a lot of money. The sooner you fucking speak up, the better. The longer it takes, the more abuse I have to take, and the more permanent it'll be. Because the longer it goes without anybody taking a look at these dominoes. By dominoes, what I mean is, you set them up, I'll knock them down, right? It's a reference to how one event leads to another. How one series of events would not be possible were it not for the exact events that happened prior to it. There's a lot of philosophical stuff, like people say, oh, well, you know, we can't travel in time, but then there's if you jump across the date line where the time zones are, then you're hopping through time. You can actually hop backwards in time 24 hours, philosophically anyway. But the reality is, we are all time travelers, and we are all traveling forward in time. We don't travel backwards. Time is linear, and it goes in only one direction. Now, you guys go ahead and have your scientific theories, whatever. My question is, what's the importance and relevance of it? Is it to appease your curiosity? How many of these resources are out there being expended to appease people's curiosity? While we have our own citizens starving to death, and it's for your curiosity. When you say, oh, well, you know, I'm not curious to see people die. Well, of course not. You're not thinking about those people at all. You're reaching for the stars. Isn't that right? You want to be able to see those stars out there, billions and billions of light years away. You want to be able to see them even closer. Now we need to have a multi-trillion-dollar friggin' thing to send up into outer space and have a special connection and all this other crazy shit to appease whose curiosity, and why are we spending taxpayer dollars on that shit while people starve to death, while people don't have housing? One city in Idaho was complaining, I got this notification on my phone today, about how homelessness more than doubled in a year. Imagine that. There's bodies popping up all over Oregon and Washington State. Looks like Spokane is a primary area for a lot of hotheads. It's also a pretty prime area now for a lot of severed heads. And I don't mean just there, I mean all through here. There are multiple heads popping up between here and Spokane. Now, being in the local area, I get to hear about it. And being as there's a news feed thing that pops up on my phone and shows me local news, like I get to see a lot of real creepy shit. I don't know how to take that off of my phone either. Now, as much as you guys might want to say, dude, none of this has anything to do with Brittney Griner. Well, all of it does. Who matters? Whose voice matters? You know, maybe this guy is this big, terrible monster that they claimed he is. But if he really was, they wouldn't be trading him just to appease a bunch of homosexuals, women, and black people. That's the thing, is that this was a trade for an appeasement to specific special rights groups here in the United States. We're not going to be trading somebody who is actually an international terrorist plotting against Americans. Wait. Now, that one right there, I got a story for you. Because, see, as much as it's easy to pigeonhole everything and put it into a cut and dry scenario like that, and very much that is how politics work, it all depends on who you are. Whether or not the American people care about you. Right now, we're told that we're supposed to care about black people, and we're supposed to ignore crimes that are committed against white people. That's not acceptable. You expect white people to go to work and pay taxes to have no rights. You expect white people to go fight in the military to come home and have no rights. Not even the right to defend themselves. If their assailant happens to be black, then they just have to let the person victimize them. If their assailant happens to be a woman, they have to let that person victimize them. Because bias is what prevails, not the law. And that's why democracy, communism, and socialism ultimately always fail. Because people don't want to tell the truth. They want to jockey for position. They want to compare themselves with the Joneses. And they want to get something for fucking nothing. However, with the way they painted this guy out, yeah, there is no way in hell that we would be trading him for somebody who is literally a nobody. As far as our government goes, he's not a downed American pilot who is doing his service for his country. He's not a U-2 pilot. He's not somebody who is organizing resistance against the Russians and some of the nations that Russia's having an issue with. It's not like Brittney Griner is some spy in Kiev that the Russians captured. It's not like she's an American service person who was abducted from their hotel. It's not like she's a CIA operative or somebody who works with the FBI who was abducted on vacation abroad. She serves no purpose to our government or to our nation. None. Her job is arbitrary and useless. She plays basketball. I care about basketball about as much as I care about football, which is to say not at all. You know what I gave a shit about football in the last 2 decades? I'll tell you. I cared about Colin Kaepernick fighting for our rights. He is still my fucking hero. And I cared about Tim Tebow making a big fucking show about praying. Oh my, that's not God. And that is not Christianity. That's a show. That is vanity. That is all that is. And what's the other one? Oh yeah, that asshole Vic. Y'all know I love dogs. You don't do that shit. But he can be forgiven. Colin Kaepernick can't be forgiven for standing up for our rights. He stood up for our rights by taking a knee. But he also had the podium. He had the soapbox. He had the attention. They came together for him to be heard. And yes, it cost him a lot. It cost him a professional sports career. But between a sports career and what he does for all of us by speaking out, I believe that his purpose is better served speaking out and fighting for our rights than it would be in the NFL. The NFL has shown that they're a racist organization. I'm glad there are people who are supportive of him. And there's a lot of people that I stopped being friends with because they weren't supportive of him. They wanted him to be harmed because he didn't stand for, well, a country that doesn't stand for him. They felt that he shouldn't be allowed to speak about what black people go through because he's rich now. That ain't right. No victim left behind. And I know this may not be popular with those of you who like that I say that, and you like most of the victims that I speak up for, but no victim left behind also means if that victim is rich. A lot of y'all, you got these memes you pop up on Facebook about how we should be eating the rich. I'm not okay with that for so many different reasons. But targeting them specifically because they're rich is horrible. Understanding that because somebody is rich, they are likely to be extremely ignorant of the world that they live in and the lives of those around them. However, that doesn't mean that that's absolutely the truth and absolutely the case. Now, we all try to put on an image. Emo, by definition, can't be emo because you're putting on the image. If you were really emo, you wouldn't have to wear black clothes or eyeliner. When you put that stuff on there, it doesn't denote that you don't care. It denotes that you do. You present yourself in that way for a reason. Anyway, for me, there's a lot of black folks that did send me friend requests, and of course some of them pretended that they actually wanted to be my friend and wanted me to help, or wanted to help me. But then when it came down to it, there was a lot of people in these groups. There was people who were black who got a hold of me and wanted to help me, and then what it turned out was that they weren't getting a hold of me because they understood the situation or because I had spoken up for the rights of black people. They had found my channel and heard a little bit of what I had to say and realized that I wasn't into women, jumped to a bad conclusion, and next thing you know, I've got a homosexual black person who thinks that I should try having a relationship with him because he wears women's clothes now. And I don't remember the name that I'm supposed to call that person. This is one of those, it might be Magical Unicorn or some Fairy Stardust Orion or something crazy like that. I can't remember. That's why it's important to take screenshots. It's a good thing I take screenshots. But it seemed to me almost everybody that I went to that has an alternate lifestyle had excuses for things that they wouldn't want happening to them. And in some cases, things that they literally had complained that happened to them. Things that they complained nobody would help them with, but I helped them with it. How did they forget that I helped them? I helped them how they asked. How did they forget that? And figuring as they've gone through things that are similar, I figured they might understand. But then I get the I need to shut up because I'm white. I don't understand what they're going through, and I never possibly could understand what they're going through. And how dare I ever go to them for help? How dare a white person ever go to a black person for help? And that feels horrible when you're treated that way. It feels horrible when you're treated like shit for something that you didn't choose. You didn't choose what other white people did. You didn't choose for what black people are taught or what white people are taught. You don't choose for people to remain ignorant and think about sex and money all the time, stuck in a constant rat race. So they never follow a thought through to its conclusion. They just believe what they're told. It's easier to get the Cliff's Notes. Everybody copies off of the one kid in class who knows what's going on, but then everybody gets the same answers. I remember when Mr. Miller realized that everybody was cheating off of David Bain's paperwork. It's because me and David Bain were lab partners, and David Bain would copy my notes before class. I got them done early, I liked school. Then David Bain would eventually start giving my notes out to everybody else in class. Now, not everybody in class wanted to take down David Bain's notes. And David Bain was known for keeping good notes. That's why he was my lab partner. Mr. Miller thought that me and David Bain would get along fine because he keeps good notes. And I was new. And it was also in the middle of the year, and I would probably need David Bain's notes. Well, by the end of the year, David Bain is taking my notes and taking my answers and distributing them to the people in the class that want them, which is a lot of the class. And that's how he ended up getting busted for distributing those things, because he was stupid. As my lab partner, he was kind of sort of allowed to do that. As a lab partner, when we were doing lab stuff, our lab grades were put together. David Bain wanted to complain because I'm a special ed, so Mr. Miller gave him a free pass, especially since he keeps such good notes. When it comes to your bias, yeah, there's regional bias. You go to the South, you're going to run into racists, but that don't mean that you're not going to run into racists elsewhere. I'm in Tillamook. This is a KKK enclave. Same as Chapel, Nebraska. The real danger in the KKK isn't when they're wearing their white hoods. It's who they are in their professional and personal lives. Your public defender might be a part of the KKK, but you don't know it. Your judge might be part of the KKK. The police officers, well, many of them in a lot of these areas are part of the KKK. I don't pretend that racism doesn't exist, but I'm not going to use racism as an excuse to ignore the other victims. I'm not going to pretend that white people can't be victimized when I myself have been victimized. I'm not going to pretend that the cops don't brutalize homeless people the way that they do to Sammy Leon Lawrence IV, because they absolutely have done that to me repeatedly. But I'm homeless, so no one cares. I'm homeless, so I don't have the means to do it for myself. I'm homeless, so I have to depend on others. I'm homeless, so I have to pay extra money to people who have those resources. And I have to hope they don't take me for all I'm worth. I just have to hope. It's tough to have hope. It's tough to have hope when the United States government tells us how horrible this person that they just released is, and they're going to trade him for somebody that wasn't doing anything for our country. She didn't get in trouble for any service to our nation. She got in trouble for committing a felony that she knew was a felony. All she got to do is play ignorant, and you play right into it. How about just assuming that I can't be a victim of sexual assault because I'm a male, instead of just assuming that I couldn't be the victim of race crimes or racially motivated crimes or hate crimes from the police just because of the color of my skin? That's horrible. You talk about the housing issue and about how you and your husband, with no kids, both of you working full-time jobs, can't keep a roof over your fucking heads. The only reason that you had first and last month's rent is because you were lucky enough to get together right at 18 during a decent housing market, or a decent rental market, I should say. Or you had a mom and a dad who fucking co-signed for you and helped you out with first and last month's deposit. And even then, you get onto your Facebook and you get onto your YouTube and you complain that everything is so expensive you can barely make ends meet. Meanwhile, you're both able to work, you're both working full time. What chance does somebody like me have alone? Meanwhile, I'm trying to affect actual change, actual effective change. And we can't get that done because we're busy listening to racist minorities I'm not gay, but I've been beaten up for being gay before because people wanted to assume, or because they wanted to harm somebody, and in that particular area, they felt it would be a valid excuse. Kind of like in Chapel, Nebraska, people calling me N-word lover and beating me up, or saying I'm a homosexual because I stuck up for people like Dakota Richmond. Yeah, you don't do that. They thought they were gonna beat me up. They thought they were gonna harm me. They thought they were gonna ostracize me. You know, they tried everything they could. but they were never able to shut me up. I don't get along with Dakota Richmond because he's a pompous little fuckhead. But I still fight for his rights. And when he was there, and I was there, I'll be goddamned if I was going to let anybody harm him just because he was into dudes and not women. But does Dakota have that same respect for me? Would he fight for my rights? No, he wouldn't. He doesn't care. He'd rather argue. He loves to argue. This is his favorite game in the whole world. If we could get Dakota Richmond and Chris Stegman together, no, that would be a bad idea because Chris would kill him. I mean that literally. Chris would get overwhelmed and exhausted because Dakota Richmond doesn't care if he's right or wrong. He just wants to argue for argument's sake. A lot of people think that's what I'm doing. No, I'm trying to spell it out for you. What I'm trying to do is connect the dots for you because you're not going to do it yourself. You're going to believe what you're told. If there's the dot to dots that you draw in elementary school, you got all the numbers. You go from number 1 to number 2 with your pencil, and then from number 2 to number 3 with your pencil, and eventually it turns into a picture. Well, let's imagine somebody draws all the dots in a different way, and you see them doing that, and you just assume that's the way it's supposed to go. You don't bother to look at any of the letters or any of the numbers. So, even though the picture that you're drawing, you go number 1 to number 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 and so on in sequence, it turns out being a bunny rabbit. What you've drawn is a squirrel. Or a spaceship. It could be anything. You just assumed that the person next to you was right. Now then, you've got the folks who, you get 5 or 6 people who do that. They're all wrong, but they want to believe the dude that they believe is always right. People wanted to believe that David Bain was always right on his notes. He wasn't. When he and I weren't lab partners because I got in trouble, people stopped going to him for his notes and stopped copying them. And that's how I got in trouble. Because Mr. Miller was mad at me for giving my notes to people in the class. And I said, I didn't. I shared them with my lab partner. That's it, I swear. There's a lot of people in Nebraska that they come from well-to-do families, but they play the, we're just podunk hicks. You know, he's driving around in a POS Datsun. The reason he's driving around in a POS Datsun truck is because that's one of the farm trucks. It's for going back and forth to school, but in reality, they got a Ford F-250 that's brand new out there waiting for him to turn 18. Yes, he goes to work after school and maybe even before school. Might show up to school in his Carhartts. He might show up to school smelling like cow shit. He might still be wearing his mucking boots when he walks into the school and piss off the janitor. Because he might actually have to work. But just so you know, most of us had to work. I know I had a job through all of high school. Had to. If I didn't go to work, I didn't get to eat. That's as simple as it was. My stepdad was making plenty of money. He was working for Western Sugar, rebuilding some of their sugar plants. He was sending the money back to my mom, but without my husband there, you know, my mom is now unsupervised, and he's sending her cocaine money, basically. That's what it's, equaling in her mind. So then she spends that money on cocaine, and she's fucked up out of regard for like days on end. And she ends up giving away stuff that's incredibly expensive, stuff that she bought because she was coked out of regard. And after buying it, didn't like how it looked in the living room. That's right, she did that with a couch that she ended up giving to Kaya Luktahoos. I'm like, how much did you spend for that couch? It was only $2,400. I'm like, holy shit. That is not the first time I thought about telling my mom she needed rehab. But if you guys have seen how when people in this situation were evil to me, they weren't evil to me to begin with. They did fucked up shit because they were alcoholics or because they just happened to be drinking, and the only time that they made time for me is when they were busy getting drunk and went, oh, well, I have been neglecting Sean for a bit. And you can't say anything about it being because of the alcohol, because then they'll throw a tantrum. No, they can handle their alcohol. No, that's a matter of pride. You may be able to handle your alcohol, but you can't control your fucking temper because you're depriving your brain of oxygen because you're drinking alcohol. Saying you can control your alcohol at that point is basically saying that you're able to make sure that you don't drink so much that you kill yourself, which at that point, no, you are not capable of doing that. Your ability to reason has already gone out the window. Now, with this Griner lady, don't get me wrong, all right? I'm not against THC. I'm not against her having an EpiPen or a vape pen. I'm not against that. I think it should be legal worldwide. But this poor me, I'm just an ignorant black girl routine. No, no. Homie, don't play that. We should not be trading people who are conspiring to kill a lot of Americans. We should not be trading those people for somebody who intentionally, knowingly, and willingly broke the law. Not for the safety of others, not for the protection of others, not to draw attention to the horrible things that are happening to children in this country or the homeless in this country or anything of that nature. No, it was simply because she wanted to go over to another country and smoke some pot and make money over there. Well, over there it's illegal, same as it is over here. And even though parts of here it's still legal, it's still illegal to transport it across state lines, and it's still illegal to transport or distribute it to another country. It's also illegal to put it on an interstate or international flight. And we just put a whole bunch of people's lives at risk if this guy is really the creeper they're saying he is. I tend to believe that he is probably not, because if he really were that bad, they would not have traded him for Brittney Griner. She means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things except to appease you. When I say, hey, I'm sick of people offering me real help, and then they try to appease me with a fucking sandwich, you get what I mean by sandwich, I hope, in this situation. It's not literally a sandwich. Not necessarily literally a sandwich, I should say. I am for equality. I am not for everybody in America having to go out and learn everybody's individual descriptives, because some people, him and her is not good enough. I get that. Them, they. But some people, them, they isn't good enough. They want to be called a magical unicorn or pixie dust from some other universe, something or other, or something's galaxy, or some crazy thing like that. And yeah, that's not a feasible or happening thing. There's no way that 99.99999999999999999% of the people on this planet are going to be able to do that. And the only reason that I say that instead of 100% of the people on this planet is because I leave the small chance, the small possibility that your crazy shit might possibly be true. Maybe there's one person out there on this planet who can actually read your mind and know exactly what you're thinking at every moment in time. But I severely fucking doubt it. And that is much my same belief on God. There is a possibility. I will not rule out the possibility that there's a God. Just from the evidence that I have seen, it is remote. I will not entirely rule out the possibility of aliens. Chances are pretty good that there are microbial organisms in outer space, especially since we have fossilized outer space stuff, rocks that fell into our atmosphere that have microbial organisms in them. Well, fossilized microbial organisms. So yeah, there's definitely alien life, but as far as an alien making the Great Pyramids, not fucking likely. Not fucking likely. We always like to pretend that our ancestors were incredibly fucking stupid. That they could never, ever in a million years figure out how to do all of these things. It must have been aliens that helped them. No. What we've got is accumulation of knowledge. That's what books did. That is the true renaissance for us. The advent of writing. And then those of us who are able to learn how to read, we could learn things. We could learn things that other people wrote about. We could learn secrets that they knew. However, just because you read it doesn't make it true. In nearly all of my designs, when I write them down on paper as a basic sketch, I always make sure that there are 2 to 3 screw-ups in it, no matter what. And there's a reason for that. If I draw it in a way where I know that with those changes in the right direction, the thing will absolutely work, I also know that by drawing it down the way that I did, anybody who looks at it is going to be confused with it. Like when I draw a line diagram. I also know that the average attention span for most of you, as far as caring about what somebody else is saying, is about 10 seconds. When you're watching a YouTube thing, unless it's really interesting and has lots of pictures, your interest is probably not going to peak past 5 to 10 minutes. If there's all sorts of pretty pictures and the person has a sexy accent or a soothing accent, you might listen until you go to sleep. Or until you're motivated to do something about whatever they're talking about. What I'm motivated to do something about is stopping the racism. That means stopping special rights. Here's the problem with special rights. They deny nearly all of the victims. All of the victims except for the ones in that special rights group. Only female victims of sexual assault are allowed to come forward. If a male comes forward, he will be ostracized and victimized by female victims. Because it is now commonplace. And it's even according to Facebook rules and YouTube rules. It is allowed to be sexist and hateful towards men. To make very pointedly hateful innuendos and insinuations towards all men. My predators have names. Like Natalie Bollinger, Alicia Bollinger, Tim Beeson, Ted Bollinger. My predators have names like Danica Lachelle Garner and Rochelle Shelley Campbell. They have names like Derek Apodaca. Names like Scott DaCosta and Waylon Lolatai. Names like Leslie Snell. Every one of these people chose to be predatory after making mistakes. They didn't want to admit that they made mistakes. And they didn't care who lived and who died. And as long as there was no strike against their pride. As long as they could pretend like they had done no wrong. As long as they could somehow make it the victim's fault. Or make it out to be the victim's fault. Homie, don't play that. Where these people screwed up the most was expecting me to shut up. Expecting me to go to the back of the bus and accept a racist narrative. Absolutely not. Brittney Griner, I see her as a human being and I feel bad for her. However, she has gotten such an incredible amount of special treatment. Much like faculty at CU who have been there for decades. They get a child who's got cancer and then they are pissed off because the insurance that they've been paying for over 20 years at CU as a faculty member isn't going to cover their child's cancer. However, a janitor can go there. A person who is a quote-unquote mentally ill homeless person, and that was the person who got the job, by the way. Someone who was formerly a homeless person. And this is an actual person that this happened to. Two separate people who worked at CU. One of the faculty members did have, I want to say it was a son who had cancer, but it might not have been. I just remember their kid had cancer. And I don't remember whatever came of that, but that person was very angry about the fact that they had paid that insurance for all those years and it won't cover cancer. And that very same year, that person that I knew that was homeless on Pearl Street, who ended up getting a job as a janitor at CU, why did he get the job at CU? Because if he got the job at CU and he worked there for 6 months and the insurance kicked in after 6 months, then he could get a sex change. So he worked there for 6.5 months and got a sex change and left. It worked. But I always remember that parent who was a CU alumni and also a CU faculty member and was down there on Pearl Street holding a sign and screaming about how unfair it was. But it wasn't hey, it's unfair that my child isn't covered by the insurance, but this person who wants to become a female, that's covered by insurance. No, it wasn't that at all. It was a, hey, see you. My kid's got cancer. You even have a special medical unit at CU for children who have cancer. You work together with special cancer units and have special cancer grants. Why the fuck doesn't my insurance cover the cancer that my kid's got? Why do I have to make a fucking fundraiser and try to beg people for money for something that I paid in for 20 years? I'm the one who's offended by the fact that CU wasn't going to cover that child's cancer, but that everybody wanted to make a big deal about, well, how our insurance should be covering what God did wrong. Obviously, there's a lot of folks who don't want the genitalia that they were born with, and they're angry about that, and they feel that there was a mistake, and it's gotten to the point where literally we have to give them a sex change. We just have to hand it to them. All right, God was wrong, or the universe was wrong. You say give it to God or give it to the universe, right? Love and light and all of that. But apparently there was a mistake somewhere along the lines. There was some mistake made by the fates or by the who knows. But you were born with the wrong equipment and you want it changed. You want that mistake to be rectified and you want insurance to cover that. Well, all right, with that same way of thinking, could it not be a mistake? Could it not be a mistake that that child, of course, with that cancer, could that not be a mistake as well? Maybe since God made a mistake and gave you a penis when you really, really, really feel that you were supposed to have a vagina. Maybe God made a mistake with that child and that cancer. Maybe God didn't mean to give that child cancer. Maybe God just made a mistake. Maybe that child was supposed to live a long and healthy life. We so rarely apply our own things to others, do we? I do. I know what to be afraid of with all of these people because I know human nature. I understand you all. You guys don't understand me because you think I'm a lot more different than you are. I'm exhibiting traits of post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm exhibiting traits of taking long-term abuse. And you are trying to twist those things into me being a horrible monster. If I speak out about how this BLM crap is racist, I get called a racist. I'm fighting for black rights. And I'm also fighting for homeless rights. I can do both. I also know that between the two, if I was to choose based on the underdog, if I was to choose based on the most marginalized and victimized in the country, if I was to send somebody to the back of the motherfucking bus, it wouldn't be the homeless. We're the most marginalized. We're the most victimized. We're the most likely to be raped. We're the most likely to be beaten. We're the most likely to be incarcerated for shit that never fucking happened. We're the most likely to be murdered by police, by a lot. And that includes the black ones. I'm not going to tell a black homeless person that he's got to go to the back of the bus. That's wrong. That's a horrible thing to do. He's not any less of a victim because of his skin color. He is not wrong to speak up as a victim just because of his skin color. I'm not saying it's wrong for him to speak up about his abuse, because it's not. What I'm saying is that it should be equally okay for me to speak up about mine without being ostracized and victimized by other supposed victims. Any excuse is a good excuse as long as you don't have to do something. What did that Griner lady really do? Did she really put on some big, great, and wonderful thing that she had done? No. I mean, the most that she can actually get out of this is, oh, well, I was fighting for the rights of pot smokers everywhere. Yeah, there's 5 children a day who die in childcare here in the United States. I give a whole hell of a lot more of a shit about those children than I do about marijuana. Also, as a homeless person who is in the United States, in a state where marijuana is legal, and as an American who went door to door on multiple occasions in the state of Colorado to get Amendment 64 passed, yes, I do agree with pot should be legal. I don't believe that she's a bad person for smoking pot. I don't think that she should be hung out to dry because she smokes pot. Now look at how many people harass me for smoking pot. Tell me I'm a bad person because I smoke pot. Are they going after Miss Griner like that? Perhaps they should. It would be equal. Of course, she's able to handle it. She's got lots of support. People didn't peg her as a rapist and a child molester and a stalker and a murderer. God damn, she got lucky. And we've had it shoved in our faces for all this time about how black people are the most marginalized in society and how we're horrible people if we're not fighting for black rights. And meanwhile, people like me who never stopped fighting for black rights, you still don't give a shit about us. And then you tell us to go to the back of the bus as if we were never, ever, ever in the fight. You guys who jump on when it's popular want to push out the people who fought hard to get that recognition for those people. The people who were there before it was popular. And you guys are a dime a dozen. If the popular thing to do is to stick up for a black person, but of course it becomes unpopular, well, when it's unpopular, you won't be as popular for talking about it. So you'll go talk about something else. What's popular now? Is it women's issues? Is it abortions? Is it access to penis pills? That's another thing I get thrown in my face. I don't need it thrown in my face that insurance that I don't have will cover pills that I don't need. My penis works fine. I don't need it to make anybody else happy. I use it for urinating, and guess how good of a job it really does for that particular purpose. It's perfect. It's perfect. As long as I didn't just wake up in the morning. When people say, oh, you're a sicko, you should be castrated, I'm like, for what? But just so you know, at least half a year before Natalie Bollinger was killed, I made a very public post that holds true to this day. If you will pay to have my genitalia removed, I use it for peeing. Why do I care if it's out of that or a fucking straw? Why do I care? If it's not there, then you guys maybe will stop pretending that my motivations are sexually motivated. That I do things just because I want to get vagina, especially when you have sex. You can ask just about any woman I know how impossible it is to get me to have sex. I don't get hints. You have to tell me straight up when it comes to something like that. If it's something that I got a lot of experience in, yeah, I'll probably pick it up. Pick it up on my own, no problem. But if it's something I'm not familiar with, and mind you, I've never had a girlfriend, yeah, I'm not going to understand none of that. Not unless you're blunt. And who's blunt at me? That would be homosexual males who can't take no for an answer, and underage girls who can't take no for an answer. But I still say no. I've even had people who are LGBT try to insinuate that I was a horrible person because I wasn't willing to go have sex with a man just to give it a try. That I was being sexist because I wouldn't just give it a try. No. No. I did give it a fucking try. I gave it a try as a child, and it was against my fucking will. When I say no, it means fucking no, and don't make me say no again.